The sweet aroma of vanilla and cinnamon filled every corner of Sweet Haven Bakery. Claire Bennett carefully piped delicate frosting roses onto a 3-tier wedding cake. Her hands moved with practiced precision, each movement a testament to years of dedication. At 29, she had turned a tiny shop into Portland's most beloved bakery, a place where couples ordered cakes for their biggest moments and families gathered for Sunday morning pastries. Claire stepped back to admire her work, wiping a smudge of buttercream from her cheek. The afternoon sun streamed through the large windows, lighting up the display cases filled with golden croissants, chocolate eclairs, and her signature lavender honey cupcakes. This bakery was everything she had worked for since she was 16, sketching cake designs in worn notebooks while sitting in foster homes, dreaming of a place that finally felt like home. Her phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from Ryan, her boyfriend of 3 years. "Big surprise tonight at your birthday dinner? Or something special?" Claire smiled, but something in her chest tightened. Ryan Mitchell was everything she was supposed to want: successful, handsome, stable. He sold luxury homes to wealthy clients and always knew the right things to say. Their relationship looked perfect on paper, like a recipe with all the right ingredients, but somehow it lacked that magical taste. Sophie, her best friend and only employee, burst through the back door carrying boxes of fresh strawberries. "Boss lady, you need to stop working and go get ready.
Here.
Your birthday dinner's in 2 hours." Claire laughed, untying her apron. I know. I just wanted to finish this cake for the Henderson wedding tomorrow." The evening arrived with a gentle autumn breeze. Claire wore a simple navy dress, letting her dark blonde hair fall in loose waves. Ryan had chosen an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind with small portions and waiters who described each dish like a work of art. When they arrived, Claire was surprised to see not just Ryan, but a small gathering of friends and colleagues waiting. Glasses clinked and conversations flowed. Claire felt genuinely happy, surrounded by people who cared about her. Then Ryan stood up, tapping his glass to get everyone's attention. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate this amazing woman," he began, his voice smooth and confident. Claire noticed his hand slip into his jacket pocket, and her heart began to race. "Claire, you've brought so much joy into my life. You're beautiful, talented, and you've built something incredible with your bakery." He pulled out a small velvet box and dropped to one knee. The room erupted in gasps and excited whispers. "Will you marry me?" The ring sparkled under the restaurant lights, a large diamond set in platinum. Claire's mind went blank. She looked at Ryan's expectant face, at their friends leaning forward with anticipation, at Sophie who was filming the moment on her phone. This was supposed to be perfect. This was what every woman wanted. So why did it feel like she was standing at the edge of a cliff? "Yes," she heard herself say, the word coming out automatically. Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger as everyone cheered. He kissed her, and she smiled, because that was what she was supposed to do. But inside, something felt incomplete, like a cake missing its most important ingredient. The celebration continued with champagne and dessert. Claire excused herself to the restroom, needing a moment alone. She stared at her reflection, at the ring on her finger that felt heavier than it should. "What's wrong with you?" she whispered. "This is everything you wanted." When she returned to the table, she noticed someone new had joined their group. A tall man in a dark suit stood near the entrance, speaking quietly with the hostess. Something about his posture, the way he carried himself, sent a shock of recognition through her. He turned, and their eyes met across the crowded restaurant. Nathan Rivers. Claire's breath caught in her throat. 11 years had transformed the lanky teenager she remembered into a striking man with strong features and a confident bearing. His dark hair was shorter now, styled professionally, and his gray-blue eyes held the same intensity she remembered from their youth. But there was something else there now: success, purpose, determination. He walked toward their table with steady steps. Ryan noticed her expression and followed her gaze, his arm automatically tightening around her waist in a possessive gesture. "Claire," Nathan said, his voice deeper than she remembered, but still carrying that warmth that used to make her feel safe.
"Happy birthday, Nathan."
Her voice was barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" Ryan stood up, extending his hand in a gesture that was more territorial than friendly. "I'm Ryan Mitchell, Claire's fiancé." We just got engaged, actually. He emphasized the word fiancé, his jaw tightening. Nathan shook his hand but kept his eyes on Claire. Congratulations. I'm Nathan Rivers, an old friend of Claire's from high school. He pulled an aged, slightly yellowed envelope from his jacket. I came because of a promise we made a long time ago. A promise that says on your 30th birthday, if neither of us is married, we would marry each other. The table fell silent. Sophie's eyes went wide. Ryan's face darkened with confusion and anger. The room seemed to spin as Nathan held out the envelope. You kept that? She breathed, memories flooding back in a rush. She was 16 again, sitting in the back of the public library after closing time. Nathan had found her there, hiding from her latest foster placement, crying because she had nowhere to go. They had talked for hours, two scared kids who understood each other's loneliness. Before dawn, they wrote a pact on a piece of notebook paper, sealed it, and promised to keep it safe. I kept every promise I ever made to you, Nathan said softly. I know you're engaged now, and I respect that. But I had to come. I had to honor what we promised, even if just to tell you that I never forgot. I spent 11 years building something I could be proud of, becoming someone worthy of that promise. I'm here to ask for 30 days, just 30 days to remind you of who we were and who we could be together. Ryan's voice cut through the tension like a knife. This is insane. Claire, tell him you're not interested. But Claire couldn't speak. She was staring at the envelope in Nathan's hand, at the handwriting that was younger and more hopeful than anything she'd written since. That promise was made by a girl who believed in fairy tales, before life taught her to be practical and settle for good enough. Nathan placed the envelope gently on the table beside her champagne glass. I'm staying at the Riverside Hotel room for 12. If you want to talk, really talk about what that promise meant, I'll be there. If not, I'll respect your decision and leave you to your life. But I needed you to know that someone remembered. Someone never stopped caring about the girl who dreamed of opening a bakery and making people smile. He turned to leave, then paused and looked back at her one last time. You did it, Claire. You made your dream come true. I always knew you would. Then he walked out of the restaurant, leaving Claire sitting at her engagement celebration with a ring on her finger and an old promise burning a hole in her heart. What should Claire do? Should she choose the perfect life she has now, or risk it all for a promise made long ago? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for part 2 to see what happens next. Thanks for watching. That night, sleep was a stranger to Claire. She lay beside Ryan in his flawless downtown apartment, the city lights painting stripes across the ceiling through the blinds. His soft snores were a steady rhythm, but her own heart beat a frantic, uneven tempo. The engagement ring on her finger felt heavy, a beautiful cold weight catching the moonlight. It was a symbol of a future she thought she wanted, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw Nathan. She saw him standing in that restaurant, his gaze holding a promise that felt like it was from another lifetime. When the first hints of dawn finally broke through the darkness, she carefully slipped out of bed. The familiar drive to the bakery was a quiet comfort. Work had always been her sanctuary, the one place where chaos resolved into order. Flour, sugar, butter, eggs, simple, honest ingredients that, with care and patience, became something beautiful. She wished life could be measured and mixed with that same kind of certainty, that same guarantee of a sweet outcome. Sophie arrived at 6:30, her usual bright self, but her smile wavered when she saw Claire. Claire was already elbow-deep in dough for the morning croissants, a cloud of flour dusting her clothes. You're here early, Sophie said, tying on her apron. Her voice was careful. Want to talk about last night? Claire's hands paused in their rhythmic kneading. What's there to talk about? I got engaged. It was perfect. Sophie didn't buy it, except for the part where your first love, the one you thought was gone forever, showed up with a childhood promise and looked at you like you were the only person in the entire world. Sophie started the coffee maker, the machine hissing to life. Her tone was gentle but sharp, like a perfectly honed knife. Claire, I've known you for 5 years. I've never, not once, seen you look at Ryan the way you looked at Nathan last night. Claire bristled. That's not fair. Ryan is good to me. He's stable, he's successful, and he loves me. Sophie poured 2 cups of rich, dark coffee and slid one across the stainless steel counter. Does he, though? She challenged softly. Or does he love the idea of you? The successful baker who looks great in his Instagram photos and fits so perfectly into his luxury lifestyle. The question hung in the air, more potent than the aroma of brewing coffee. Just then, Claire's phone buzzed on the counter. A text from an unknown number. Her heart did a little flip-flop, even before she read the words. "I'm at Riverside Park, the bench near the old oak tree. If you want to talk, I'll be here until noon, no pressure. Just coffee and conversation between old friends." She stared at the screen, her thumb hovering over the delete button. The responsible, logical part of her brain screamed to ignore it. She was engaged. She had a wedding to plan with Ryan. She should forget that Nathan Rivers had ever walked back into her life. But when had her heart ever listened to logic when it came to Nathan? At 11:45, just 15 minutes before his self-imposed deadline, Claire found herself parking her car near Riverside Park. She told herself she was just going to tell him to leave her alone, to explain that she had moved on and was happy. But the moment she saw him, sitting on that familiar bench with 2 coffee cups beside him, and autumn leaves swirling at his feet like a scene from a movie, she knew she was lying to herself. "You came," Nathan said, a small, relieved smile on his face as he stood up. He handed her one of the cups. "I remember you used to like caramel lattes with extra foam." Claire was stunned. "You remember that?" she asked, taking the warm cup. It had been over a decade. "I remember everything about you, Claire." Nathan gestured to the path. "Walk with me?" They strolled along the same paths they had walked as teenagers. Lost kids dreaming of a world that felt too big and too harsh. Nathan told her about the years she'd missed. Talked about working 3 jobs while going to community college, then transferring to a state university to study computer science. He spoke of long nights and endless work, but his voice held no bitterness, only a quiet determination. "I created a security software in my junior year," he explained, his hands shoved casually in his pockets. It was something that could protect small businesses from cyber attacks without costing them a fortune. "I just believe that security shouldn't be a luxury reserved for the wealthy." He kicked at a stray leaf. A venture capital firm noticed it, and within 2 years I had built it into something bigger than I ever imagined. Claire nodded, She admitted quietly. "Forbes called you one of the most innovative entrepreneurs under 30. You sold your company for $400 of millions. Nathan stopped walking and turned to face her, his eyes serious. "I did all of that for one reason, Claire. So I could come back and keep my promise. So I could be someone you would be proud to stand beside. Every late night, every risk I took, every deal I closed, I thought about that piece of paper we signed when we were kids.
What?
I thought about the girl who understood what it felt like to have nothing and dream of everything." Just as the weight of his words settled over her, Claire's phone rang, shattering the moment. Ryan's name flashed on the screen. She stepped away, her voice hesitant as she answered. "Where are you?" Ryan's voice was tight with irritation. "I've been calling all morning. We need to talk about the wedding venue. I have appointments scheduled." "I'm just taking a walk," she said, trying to keep her voice even.
Right.
"I needed some air after last night." There was a beat of silence, and then, "Are you with him?" The accusation in his tone was like a physical blow. "With that guy from the restaurant." "Ryan, I'm just clearing my head." I looked him up, Claire. "Nathan Rivers, worth over $200 million. Is that what this is about? You think you can trade up?" His words were cold and sharp, stinging her pride. "I've invested 3 years in this relationship," he continued, his voice rising. "I introduced you to clients, helped promote your bakery on my social media. You owe me more than this." Claire's hand tightened on her phone. "I owe you." "Ryan, relationships aren't business transactions. Everything is a transaction," he shot back. "I thought you were smarter than this." And then he hung up. She stood there, frozen, the dial tone buzzing in her ear. The ground felt like it had just shifted beneath her feet. Nathan had kept a respectful distance, not prying, just being there. "Are you okay?" he finally asked, his voice full of concern. "I don't know," she whispered, the words barely audible. "I don't know anything anymore." That evening, back at the bakery as they were cleaning up, Sophie pulled her aside. "I did something I probably shouldn't have," Sophie confessed, pulling out her laptop. "After meeting Ryan, I just got this weird feeling. So I did some digging." She turned the screen toward Claire, revealing a series of articles and social media posts. "Ryan's real estate business isn't doing as well as he claims. He's been buying properties with money from wealthy clients, promising quick returns, but the deals keep falling through. There's even talk of an investigation. The pieces started falling into place with a sickening thud. Claire scrolled through the evidence, her stomach sinking. He wanted to invest in the bakery last year, she remembered aloud. Said no, because I wanted to keep it independent. He got so angry. Because he needed the money, Sophie said gently. Claire, I think he's been using you. Your success, your reputation, your connections. That engagement ring probably came from him trying to lock you down before his whole world fell apart. The realization was a physical blow. All the little red flags she'd ignored now waved furiously in her mind. The way Ryan always wanted to take photos for his social media at the bakery, but never once asked about her passion for baking. How he introduced her as his girlfriend, the baker instead of his partner. The way their future was always discussed in terms of investments and networking opportunities. 2 days later, Claire met Nathan again, this time at a small, quiet coffee shop far from prying eyes. She told him everything. About Ryan, about Sophie's research, about how empty and fraudulent she felt, wearing an engagement ring from a man who saw her as a business asset. I need to know something, Claire said finally, her hands wrapped around her untouched coffee cup. Why did you really stay away for 11 years? If you cared so much, why didn't you come back sooner? Nathan's expression grew serious, his gaze unwavering. Because I was nobody, Claire. I was just a kid from the foster care system with nothing to offer you but dreams and determination. You deserved someone who could give you security, who could protect you from ever feeling hungry or scared again. I stayed away because I loved you too much to drag you down while I was still climbing out of the hole we were both born into. His voice cracked slightly. Every success I had, I measured it against one question. Am I good enough for Claire yet? Can I provide for her the way she deserves? It took me 11 years to build something solid enough, real enough, that I could stand before you and honestly say I kept my promise. Not just the promise to marry you, but the promise to become someone worthy of your love. Tears streamed down Claire's face, hot and fast. You were always worthy, Nathan. Even when we had nothing, you were the only person who ever made me feel like I was worth something. You shared your lunch with me. You let me sleep in your car when I had nowhere to go. You believed in my dream of opening a bakery when everyone else told me to be realistic. Nathan reached across the table and gently wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. That girl who dreamed of a bakery, who believed in magic and happy endings before the world taught her to settle. She's still in there, isn't she? Claire looked down at the expensive ring on her finger. It was beautiful, impressive, and completely meaningless. It represented everything that mattered to Ryan, and nothing that mattered to her. I need to end things with Ryan, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Not because of you or because of some childhood promise, because I deserve better than to be someone's investment. You deserve everything. Claire, Nathan said, his voice steady and sure. Whether that includes me or not, you deserve someone who loves you for who you are, not what you can do for them. Someone who knows your favorite flowers and remembers how you take your coffee. Someone who asks about your dreams before asking about your profit margins. As she drove home that night, Claire felt a profound shift inside her. A mix of fear and hope, uncertainty and possibility. The next few days would be hard. Breaking an engagement, facing Ryan's inevitable anger, explaining it all to her friends and family. But for the first time in years, she felt awake. She was remembering the person she was before she learned to play it safe and settle. That old faded promise tucked away in an envelope suddenly felt less like a fantasy and more like a compass, pointing her towards something real, something true, and something worth fighting for. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. See you next time. 3 days. That's how long Claire sat with the weight of the engagement ring on her finger. She had called this meeting. It was time. Ryan paced by the window, phone in hand, barely glancing her way. Ryan, we need to talk, she said, her voice surprisingly steady. I finally turned, his eyes holding a coldness she'd somehow missed before. If this is about that Rivers guy, he snapped. I told you, he's just jealous. He thinks money can buy anything. This isn't about Nathan, Claire said, taking a breath. This is about us, about how you see me. Ryan, when was the last time you asked about my dreams? About what makes me happy, besides the bakery's profit margins? His jaw tightened. I promote your business constantly. I bring you clients. What more do you want? I want someone who loves me, she said, her voice quiet but firm, not what I can do for them. She slid the ring off her finger and placed it on the coffee table. I know about your business troubles, Ryan. The bad investments, the investigation. His face flushed a deep red. Who told you? Your friend Sophie. She's always been jealous of us. Sophie cares about me, Claire corrected, standing up, feeling stronger with every word. You proposed because you needed to secure your image, to show investors you were stable. I was just another asset in your portfolio. You're making a huge mistake, he hissed. You think that childhood sweetheart story is real? He disappeared for 11 years, Claire. He didn't want you then, and he won't want you now. You're throwing away a sure thing for a fantasy. Claire picked up her purse. Maybe it is a fantasy. But I'd rather chase something real and risk failing than spend my life in a relationship that looks perfect but feels empty. I deserve someone who knows my favorite season is autumn, who remembers I cry during happy movies. Someone who sees me. She walked to the door and paused. I hope you fix your business, Ryan, but I can't be part of your plan anymore. The door clicked shut behind her. For the first time in years, Claire felt like she could finally breathe. But it wasn't that simple. Ryan launched a social media campaign, painting himself as the victim. He twisted the story, implying Claire left him for a richer man. Fake negative reviews started appearing on the bakery's page. One night, Sophie found Claire crying in the dark. I did the right thing, didn't I? Claire whispered. The right thing is often the hardest thing, Sophie said, wrapping an arm around her. But you're free now, Claire, free to choose what you really want. Through it all, Nathan kept his distance. He sent a few texts to check in, but never pressured her. Take all the time you need, he'd said. I waited 11 years. I can wait as long as you need. His patience made everything clearer. He wasn't trying to possess her. He was respecting her. 3 weeks after the breakup, Claire pulled out the old, yellowed envelope Nathan had given her. She unfolded the letter they'd written as teenagers, two scared kids promising to be each other's safe harbor. Then, she sat at her kitchen table and started to write a new letter. Dear Nathan, it began, we were 16 when we made that promise. You thought you needed to be successful to be worthy of keeping it, but you were always worthy. The boy who shared his lunch, who believed in my dreams, that boy was everything. The man you became is impressive, but that's not why I'm choosing you. I'm choosing you because you're the only person who ever made me feel like home. Because with you, I remember who I wanted to be before I learned to settle. If your offer still stands, I'm ready. Not because of a childhood promise, but because of what we could be now. She drove to his hotel, her heart pounding. She knocked on room 412, but a cleaning woman answered. Mr. Rivers checked out 2 days ago, honey. He left this at the front desk for you. Her name was on the envelope. Inside was a plane ticket to San Francisco for the next morning, and a note. Claire, it read, I'm heading home so you don't feel pressured. But if you want to explore what we could be, come to this address tomorrow at noon. If you don't, I'll understand. But if you do, I promise to spend every day proving some promises are worth keeping. The choice is yours, always yours. Nathan. The next morning, Claire stood in her bakery at dawn, staring at the ticket. Sophie burst in, took one look at her face, and started packing a bag of pastries. What are you doing? Claire asked, confused. Packing you snacks for the flight, Sophie said, shoving the bag into her hands. You think I'm going to let you miss this? Go chase your happiness. The bakery will be here when you get back. The taxi pulled up to a beautiful home, overlooking the San Francisco Bay. Nathan stood on the steps. The moment he saw her, his face lit up with a smile that made her heart soar. You came, he breathed, meeting her halfway. I came, she confirmed, tears streaming down her face. Not because of the promise we made at 16, but because of the promise I want to make now. Stop being afraid of wanting too much. Just take a chance on something real. He pulled her into his arms, and it felt like the final piece of her life clicking into place. I love you, he whispered. I've loved you since we were kids with nothing but dreams. I love you too, she said, looking into his eyes. The boy you were and the man you became. He kissed her then, a kiss full of promise. When they pulled apart, he took her hand. I have something to show you. He led her through the house to a large, sun-filled room. It was a professional kitchen, industrial ovens, marble countertops, every piece of baking equipment she'd ever imagined. I thought maybe you could open a second location, he said nervously. Or just use it as a personal kitchen. I just wanted you to know that your dreams mattered to me, that I see you, Claire. Tears of joy streamed down her face as she ran her hands over the cool, smooth surfaces. It's perfect. You're perfect. This is perfect. 6 months later, they stood in a small garden for their wedding. No huge crowd, no photographers, just 50 people who truly loved them. As Nathan slipped a simple ring on her finger, engraved with the date of their original promise, Claire knew that some love stories do get their happy endings. I promise to be your safe harbor, Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. And I promise to be your home, she replied, her own voice breaking with joy, as you've always been mine. 5 years passed. Sweet Haven Bakery had 3 locations. Claire and Nathan built a life around both their dreams. On quiet Sunday mornings, you could find them in their San Francisco kitchen. Claire teaching Nathan how to make the perfect croissant.